Hello, I'm Keith Clements, and today, of course, 23rd of April, is St. George's Day. The whole business of St. George's flag showing the cross has become somewhat controversial, of course. Excuse me, I'm still trying to throw off a cold. But I must admit to having a problem with the patron saint of England himself, simply because we know really so very little about him. He's generated scores of legends. All we can be certain of is that he was a soldier in the Roman army sometime in the 3rd century AD, somewhere in the Middle East, maybe in Palestine, who refused to renounce his Christian faith under persecution instigated by the Emperor Diocletian. Beyond that, we know very little. Well, you might say perhaps we don't need to know any more than that. I do like, incidentally, the story of the young boy who was so captivated by a dramatic painting of St. George slaying the dragon and couldn't take his eyes off it. But his parents discovered eventually that what he was really impressed by was not St. George in shining armour, but the dragon breathing fire and slaughter. So I do find it rather hard, really, to relate to a figure about whom I know so little, even if he was a martyr. Anyway, for whatever reason, George has become a popular and honoured name for boys, not quite so commonly perhaps as Georgina for girls. But these past few days I've been reflecting that if I find it hard to visualize St. George as a real human person, maybe I should think of some of the Georges I have known personally and who are honoured by his name. Maybe I should think of any of those I should be especially grateful for. There's one George I particularly would like to remember today and mention. His name was George Cunliffe. He was a member of the congregation where my father was minister at Lytham in Lancashire in the early 1950s and 1960s. He was a tall, spare man with a rugged, work-lined face. He'd worked in the cotton towns of East Lancashire. Now in semi-retirement by the seaside, he was a bank guard. He'd served in the trenches in the First World War. He couldn't stand on ceremony, especially if he thought it was a sham. One Remembrance Sunday, I remember, he got quite angry at hearing about the parades with flags and medals turning up at the town cenotaph. Pulling up his sleeve, he pointed to a long white scar running up his arm. "That's what I got from a German bayonet in 1918, he said. That's my medal." He sniffed. Strong opinions, yes, whether you agreed with them or not, about the church or the state of the world or whatever. But he was an astonishingly kind man, too, ready to help in any way he could. In the church, helping at Sunday school Christmas parties, cheering on the youth club football team, needing them when they needed good advice from the touchline, and every Sunday, both services, morning and evening, singing in the choir. Those of us who tenors and basses liked to sit close to him on the back row of the choir because he always had in his pocket a packet of sweets, peppermints, and they helped us endure my father's rather long sermons. He was someone who was always there, ready to help in any way he could, however simple. He was also a man of deep and sincere prayer. He was present with God. So if I can't really visualize what St. George, the original George, was like, I can turn to the George I did know. Remember his sturdy yet humble faith, his reliability, his cheerful, faithful presence, making him a worthy bearer of the name of our patron saint. Perhaps I might make a suggestion. Perhaps we could each do something similar on any saint's day, or as any special commemoration of a great figure in the story of the church, or our nation, or any other nation. You could think of the George, or the Mary, or the Joseph, or the David, or the Francis, or the Frances, or the Catherine, whoever, and ask, what are the particular signs of Christ-likeness, faith, hope, and love that I see and appreciate in that person and have been a means of grace to me? Of course, to be honest, you might light on someone whose graces are not all that evident, in which case you can pray for him or her, or for yourself, that your eyes might be opened to a feature of his or her personality that you haven't really seen so far. The Apostle Paul speaks of followers of Jesus as those called to be saints, people who are open to the Holy Spirit's breath in their lives, whose loving influence is expressed in a myriad different ways depending on who we are. Following Jesus is a communal journey together. On this journey, we become Christ to one another, a journey of being led to wonder more and more at what God envisages for us. So I conclude with the prayer which Paul offers in his letter to the Ephesians. He says, I bow my knees before the Father, from whom every family in heaven and on earth takes its name. I pray that according to the riches of his glory, he may grant that you may be strengthened in your inner being with power through his Spirit, and that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith, as you are being rooted and grounded in love. I pray that you may have the power to comprehend with all the saints, with patron Saint St. George and the George Cunliffes of this world, what is the breadth and length and height and depth, and to know the love of Christ that surpasses knowledge, so that you be filled with all the fullness of God. May God bless us all this St. George's Day.